My mom called on Christmas, asking why the kids weren't wearing the clothes she'd been sending monthly. Mom's voice came through the phone speaker bright and confused while I stood in our kitchen on Christmas morning, watching my kids tear through presents in the living room. I froze with a coffee mug halfway to my lips, the ceramic suddenly feeling like it weighed 50 pounds. Behind me, my wife Ashley went completely still at the stove, her hand gripping the spatula so hard her knuckles turned white. Mom continued, oblivious to the bomb she'd just detonated. I know kids grow fast, but I've sent packages every single month for the last year and a half. Are they too small already? I saved all the receipts, spent over $3,000 making sure they had nice things. The mug slipped from my fingers, shattering across the tile floor in an explosion of porcelain and coffee that made both kids look up from their toys. I'd been working as a supply chain manager for a mid-sized logistics company in Atlanta for 8 years when this happened, pulling in a solid income that kept our family comfortable in a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. Ashley had been a stay-at-home mom since Lily was born 7 years ago, with Noah following 3 years later. We'd built what I thought was a stable, honest life together, the kind where we shared everything and trusted each other completely. My mom lived in Phoenix, had moved there 5 years earlier to be near my sister after Dad passed away. She video called the kids every week without fail, sent birthday cards with checks, and always asked about their lives with genuine interest. She'd mentioned a few times that she liked sending surprise packages because it made her feel connected despite the distance. I'd assumed she meant the occasional toy or book, the random Amazon box that showed up every few months. But $3,000 worth of clothes over 18 months meant she'd been sending substantial packages regularly, not just occasional surprises. That was nearly $170 every month, packages that should have been arriving at our house, boxes the kids should have been excited about, gifts I should have seen them wearing. Ashley was staring at me now, her face a mask I didn't recognize, and I realized with a sinking feeling in my gut that I'd never seen a single package from my mom, not one. Ashley handled all our mail, always had, sorting it while I was at work, dealing with the daily influx of bills and advertisements. She'd bring me things that needed my attention, stack them on my desk in the home office, and I'd trusted that system completely. The thought that she might have been intercepting and hiding my mother's packages had never even crossed my mind until this exact moment, standing and spreading coffee while my mom waited for an answer I didn't have. I managed, my voice sounding strange and distant. She agreed, confused but willing, and I ended the call. Ashley had turned back to the stove, flipping pancakes with mechanical precision, not looking at me. Lily and Noah had returned to their new toys, oblivious to the tension crackling through the kitchen like electricity. I grabbed paper towels and knelt to clean up the broken mug, my hands shaking slightly as I picked up ceramic shards. Quote 3, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice level. Quote 4, Ashley nodded, still not turning around, her shoulders rigid. Quote 5, I asked, even though her body language had already given me the answer. She finally turned, her face composed now, almost too composed, and said, Quote 6, the explanation sounded reasonable at first, the kind of thing that could be an innocent misunderstanding about household management and personal preferences, but something about the way she said it, the rehearsed quality of her tone, made my stomach clench. Quote 7, Ashley's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Your mother has always been too involved, always trying to control how we dress them and what they wear. I made a parenting decision, and I don't need to justify it. The defensiveness in her voice, the immediate shift to blaming my mother, set off alarm bells in my head. I'd heard that tone before, usually when Ashley was caught in something she didn't want to explain. My mother wasn't controlling, had never been controlling. She sent gifts with love and asked nothing in return except maybe a photo of the kids enjoying them. The accusation didn't match reality, which meant Ashley was deflecting. I stood up, dropping the coffee-soaked paper towels in the trash, and tried to process what was happening. So, every month when a package arrived from Phoenix, you took it to Goodwill without mentioning it? Without letting the kids open presents from their grandmother? Ashley turned off the stove and faced me fully, her expression hardening into something I'd rarely seen directed at me. Quote 10, but that wasn't what this was about, and we both knew it. This was about deception, about hiding things, about making unilateral decisions that affected our entire family, and then lying about it for 18 months. I pulled out my phone and called Mom back, putting her on speaker. When she answered, I asked, "Can you tell me exactly what you've been sending? Describe some of the packages." Mom's voice filled the kitchen, warm and detailed. Quote 12. Ashley's face had gone pale, her composure cracking around the edges. My mom continued, listing items with specific brands, colors, and prices, painting a picture of generous, thoughtful gifts that any kid would have been thrilled to receive. Premium brands, quality items, things we probably wouldn't have splurged on ourselves, but that would have been perfect for the kids, Mom added. Quote 14. The cards. If Ashley had donated everything to Goodwill immediately, the kids would never have seen Grandma's notes, would never have known she was thinking about them with such specific care. I thanked Mom and told her I'd call her back later, ending the call before she could hear the tension in my voice crack completely. Ashley stood frozen at the stove, and I asked the question that was burning through my mind. Quote 15. The silence that followed my question was answer enough. Ashley blinked, her mouth opening and closing, and I saw the moment she realized she was caught. Quote 16, she said finally, but her voice wavered. Quote 17. I pulled up the Goodwill website on my phone, already knowing what I'd find. Goodwill issues receipts for every donation, especially for $3,000 worth of merchandise. They document everything for tax deduction purposes. So where are the receipts, Ashley? She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter, and I felt my world tilting on its axis. If she hadn't donated the clothes, where were they? What had she done with 18 months of packages, hundreds of dollars in gifts, meant for our children? I walked to the garage, where we kept old boxes and miscellaneous storage. Nothing there. I checked the attic access in the hallway. Nothing. I went to our bedroom and started opening closet doors while Ashley followed, telling me to stop, to calm down, to wait until after Christmas to discuss this. But I couldn't stop. I pulled open Ashley's closet, pushing aside hanging clothes, and at the back, stacked on the top shelf, I found them. Boxes. Sealed shipping boxes from Phoenix, addressed to our house, with my mother's return address in the corner. 5 of them, unopened, the packing tape still intact. My hands trembled as I pulled them down, checking the shipping dates. These were from the last 5 months, August through December. 5 months of packages that had arrived at our house and been hidden away where the kids would never see them. I ripped open the top box, the one from December, and inside found the purple winter coat Mom had mentioned. Tags still attached, $180 marked on the Nordstrom label. Noah's red Patagonia jacket was underneath, equally pristine. There were also jeans, sweaters, pajamas, all brand new, all with the cards Mom had mentioned, each one addressed to Lily or Noah with personal messages about starting 4th grade or learning to ride a bike. Ashley stood in the doorway watching me discover her lie, and her expression had shifted from defensive to something else, something that looked almost like relief that she didn't have to pretend anymore. "Why?" I asked, holding up one of Mom's cards, my voice cracking. Quote 20. Ashley crossed her arms, and when she spoke, her voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. Because I sold the other ones. I sold everything from the first 13 months on Poshmark and other resale sites. The designer stuff brought in good money, usually 50 to 60% of retail value. I stopped when I had enough. The words hit me like physical blows. She'd sold them. Sold gifts meant for our children, pocketed the money, and hidden the evidence. I sank onto the edge of our bed, still holding Noah's jacket, trying to understand how the woman I'd married could do something like this. Quote 22. I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Ashley's silence stretched between us like a chasm. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, checking our joint account where I deposited my paycheck and we paid our bills. The balance looked normal, about $3,800, roughly what I expected. But Ashley had her own checking account, separate from our joint account, that she'd insisted on keeping when we got married. She said it made her feel independent, gave her a sense of financial autonomy, and I'd never questioned it. I said, my voice steady despite the chaos raging inside me. Quote 24. Ashley shook her head. Quote 25. But we'd never agreed she could steal from our children and hide it. I stood up, pulling the other 4 boxes down from the shelf and opened each one methodically. More clothes, more designer labels, more cards from Mom expressing love and excitement about the kids' milestones. The shipping labels showed the progression of packages, each one arriving like clockwork around the middle of every month. I calculated quickly in my head, 13 months of packages sold, Mom spending roughly $170 per month, items reselling for 50 to 60% of retail. Ashley had likely made somewhere between $1,100 and $1,400 from selling gifts meant for Lily and Noah, money she'd kept entirely for herself, while I worked 50-hour weeks to support our family, and my mother went without to make sure her grandchildren had nice things. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I couldn't even process the full scope of it. I looked at Ashley, really looked at her, and wondered how long this version of her had existed, hiding behind the mask of the woman I thought I knew. Quote 26. I said, quote 27. Ashley's face flushed with anger, her defensive walls crumbling into rage. Your mother is too generous. She makes me look bad, always sending expensive things we can't afford to buy. She undermines my parenting, acts like I can't provide for my own children. I needed the money for my own expenses, for things I wanted, for a life that wasn't just about being your wife and their mother. The confession poured out of her, months of resentment and selfishness finally exposed. She'd stolen from our children not out of necessity, but out of jealousy and entitlement, had punished them for her own insecurities about my mother's generosity. I felt sick, physically ill, standing in our bedroom surrounded by evidence of her deceit. What expenses? I asked, my voice hollow. What did you need the money for that was more important than our kids' relationship with their grandmother? Ashley looked away, her jaw set in stubborn defiance. That's my business. That's private. But nothing was private anymore, not when she'd crossed this line. I gathered all 5 boxes and carried them to the living room, setting them down in front of the Christmas tree where Lily and Noah were still playing with their new toys. Quote 32. I called, trying to keep my voice cheerful. Quote 30. Their faces lit up with excitement, and Ashley made a move to stop me, but I shot her a look that froze her in place. I helped the kids open the boxes and watched their genuine joy as they discovered coat after jacket after outfit, each one sparking squeals of delight. Quote 34, Lily asked, holding up a beautiful dress. I explained that Grandma had been sending packages for a long time, and we were just now opening some of them. Noah found his red Patagonia jacket and immediately put it on, zipping it up and spinning around to show me. The innocence in their happiness, the pure gratitude for their grandmother's thoughtfulness, made Ashley's betrayal even more devastating. After the kids had sorted through everything and found the cards Mom had written, reading them aloud with excitement, I sent them to play in their rooms for a bit. Ashley sat on the couch, her face unreadable. I called Mom, put her on FaceTime, and let the kids show her everything they'd found, gushing about the clothes and thanking her profusely. Mom's face glowed with happiness, and then her expression shifted to confusion. Lily looked at me, confused, and I had to make a choice: protect Ashley's secret and teach the kids that deception was acceptable, or tell the truth and show them that actions have consequences. Mommy made a mistake and didn't give you the packages when they arrived, I said carefully. But we found them today, and that's what matters. Mom's expression on the screen told me she understood something was very wrong, but she played along for the kids' sake. After we ended the call, I told Lily and Noah to try on their new clothes in their rooms, and once they were gone, I turned to Ashley. I need you to show me your bank account right now, or I'm calling a lawyer first thing tomorrow morning. The threat was real, and Ashley must have heard it in my voice. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and logged into her banking app, turning the screen toward me with obvious reluctance. The account showed a balance of $9,200. $9,200 in an account I'd never seen, while we supposedly lived paycheck to paycheck, while I stressed about money for the kids' activities, while we told them we couldn't afford the school trip to Washington, D.C. because it was too expensive. I grabbed the phone before she could pull it away and scrolled through the transaction history. Deposits labeled Poshmark and Mercari and ThreadUp, dating back 18 months, each one a few $100s. The resale platforms where she'd sold my mother's gifts. But the withdrawals told an even more disturbing story. Spa treatments, salon visits, boutique clothing stores, restaurants I'd never been to, bars downtown. She'd been living a secret life with stolen money, spending on herself while our family sacrificed. One transaction caught my eye. A charge to a hotel in Atlanta, our own city, for $320 on a Friday evening 3 months ago. The date stood out because I remembered that weekend clearly. Ashley had told me she was going to a friend's bachelorette party overnight, had kissed me goodbye Friday afternoon and come back Saturday morning. I'd stayed home with the kids, made dinner, put them to bed, never suspecting anything. "What's this hotel charge?" I asked, zooming in on the transaction. Ashley's face went white, then red, and she grabbed for the phone. I held it out of reach, my heart pounding. Quote 45. She collapsed onto the couch, her face crumbling, and whispered, quote, 46. The words seemed to come from very far away, filtering through the roaring in my ears. I sat down heavily in the chair across from her, still holding her phone, staring at the evidence of betrayal that went so much deeper than stolen gifts. Quote 47. The statement hung in the air, undeniable and devastating. Ashley was crying now, real tears this time, but they didn't move me. I scrolled back further in her transaction history, finding more hotel charges, more restaurant meals, a pattern of expenditures that suggested this wasn't a one-time thing. 6 hotel charges over the past 10 months. 6 times she'd lied to me about where she was, who she was with, what she was doing. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed home with the kids while she supposedly met friends, attended book clubs, went to girls' nights. How many of those had been lies? How many times had she kissed me goodbye and gone to meet whoever this person was, funded by money she'd stolen from Lily and Noah? I stood up, needing to move, needing to do something with the rage building in my chest. Quote 48, I asked. Ashley shook her head. Quote 49. But it did matter. It mattered enormously, because I needed to know how deep this betrayal went. I called my sister Rachel in Phoenix, stepping into the home office and closing the door. When she answered, I told her everything in a rush. The stolen packages, the resale income, the secret bank account, the hotel charges. Rachel was silent for a long moment, then said, quote 50. The information hit me like a sledgehammer. Mom was a nurse, had been for 35 years, and I knew she wasn't wealthy. Her pension was modest, and she picked up extra shifts to supplement her income. She'd been working extra hours, sacrificing her own comfort and rest to send gifts that Ashley sold for spa treatments and affairs. The scope of the cruelty was staggering. Rachel's voice turned hard. What are you going to do? I looked around the office at the life I'd built, the family photos on the walls, the illusion of happiness captured in frozen moments. Quote 52. I spent the next hour researching divorce lawyers in Atlanta, finding names, reading reviews, making notes. It was Christmas Day, so no offices were open, but I sent emails to 3 different attorneys explaining my situation and requesting emergency consultations. I needed someone who specialized in fraud and infidelity cases, someone who could protect my kids from the fallout of their mother's choices. Around noon, Lily knocked on the office door, asking if we were still having Christmas dinner. I'd completely forgotten about the turkey in the fridge, the meal we'd planned, the normalcy we were supposed to perform. I came out to find Ashley setting the table mechanically, her face blotchy from crying. We should talk about how to handle this with the kids, she said quietly. I shook my head. There's nothing to talk about. You're going to move into the guest room tonight. After Christmas, you're going to find somewhere else to stay, and we're going to figure out custody and divorce through lawyers. Ashley's face crumpled again, and she reached for me. I stepped back, away from her touch. Quote 55. She begged. Quote 56. But some things couldn't be fixed, couldn't be changed. She'd stolen from our children repeatedly, with calculation and intention. She'd cheated on me multiple times, lying with such ease that I'd never suspected. She'd lived a double life for months, maybe longer, while I worked to support our family and trusted her completely. The woman I'd married either never existed or had disappeared so gradually I hadn't noticed until the mask was ripped off. I cooked Christmas dinner alone while Ashley stayed in our bedroom. I served the kids turkey and stuffing and pretended everything was fine, answering their questions about why Mommy wasn't eating with vague explanations about her not feeling well. After dinner, I called Mom and told her everything. She listened in shocked silence, occasionally gasping or crying, her heartbreak palpable through the phone. My poor grandchildren, she kept saying. How could anyone do that to children? That night, After I'd put Lily and Noah to bed, I sat in the living room with my laptop and started documenting everything. I photographed every box, every piece of clothing, every card from Mom. I logged into Ashley's phone while she was in the bathroom and took screenshots of her bank account, the Poshmark sales, the hotel charges, the restaurant receipts. I downloaded our joint account statements and highlighted the transactions I'd made versus the ones she'd made, showing the clear disparity in our spending. I wanted documentation of everything before she had a chance to delete evidence or concoct explanations. Around midnight, my email pinged with a response from one of the lawyers I'd contacted. Patricia Vaughn, a partner at a family law firm, said she had availability for an emergency meeting on December 26th at 9 a.m. Her email expressed sympathy for my situation and confirmed she specialized in cases involving financial misconduct and adultery. I replied immediately, confirming the appointment. The next morning, I left the house at 8:30, telling Ashley I'd be back in a few hours. She tried to talk to me, tried to explain, but I walked past her without responding. Patricia Vaughn's office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel, the kind of place that charged premium rates but delivered results. Patricia herself was in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and an efficient handshake. I spent 90 minutes walking her through everything, showing her the evidence I'd compiled. She took notes on a legal pad, occasionally interrupting to ask clarifying questions. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "This is one of the clearer cases of financial misconduct in a marriage I've seen. The theft of gifts meant for minor children, the secret income from reselling those gifts, the extramarital affairs funded by that income. It's all documented and provable. In Georgia, we're an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly, but the court can consider misconduct when making decisions. Your wife's behavior will absolutely impact custody, alimony, and asset division." Patricia explained the process. We'd file for divorce immediately, citing adultery and financial misconduct. We'd request temporary custody of the children pending the final hearing. We'd subpoena Ashley's bank records and her accounts on the resale platforms to document the full scope of the theft. We'd potentially file a civil suit on behalf of the children for the value of the stolen gifts, though Patricia cautioned that might be complicated since technically the gifts were delivered to our household. The important thing was protecting Lily and Noah, making sure they had stability while their mother faced consequences for her choices. Patricia's fee was $400 an hour, with a $10,000 retainer, money I didn't have readily available, but would find somehow. I left her office with a folder of paperwork to review and sign, my head spinning with legal terminology and next steps. When I got home, Ashley was waiting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, her eyes red and swollen. "Quote 60, she asked. "Quote 61, I replied flatly. Ashley's face crumbled and she started crying again, but this time I felt nothing but exhaustion. She'd used up all my sympathy, all my compassion, all my willingness to believe in her. "Quote 62, she said through her tears. "Quote 63, but they weren't mistakes. They were choices, deliberate and repeated choices to betray our family. I went to our bedroom and started packing her things, throwing clothes into suitcases, gathering her toiletries from the bathroom. Ashley followed me, pleading, but I didn't stop until I'd filled 3 suitcases with her belongings. I carried them to the front door and set them there. "You have until tomorrow morning to arrange somewhere else to stay," I told her. "If you're not gone by noon, I'm calling the police and reporting you for theft." The threat was real, and Ashley must have heard it in my voice. She stared at me, searching for any sign of the man who'd loved her, but that man had died on Christmas morning when my mother's question destroyed the illusion of our life together. Ashley called her sister, Brittany, who lived about 30 miles away in Marietta. I listened from the hallway as Ashley explained through sobs that we were having problems, and she needed a place to stay temporarily. She left out the theft, the affairs, the real reasons our marriage was ending. Brittany agreed immediately, the way family does in a crisis, not knowing she was sheltering someone who'd committed fraud against her own children. By evening, Ashley had loaded her suitcases into her car. She tried one more time to talk to me, to explain, to ask for forgiveness, but I opened the door and waited silently until she walked through it. After she left, I sat down with Lily and Noah and explained in age-appropriate terms that Mommy and Daddy needed some time apart, that sometimes adults have problems they need to work out, that none of this was their fault, and we both loved them very much. Lily cried, asking why, demanding details I couldn't give her. Noah, only 4 years old, didn't fully understand but sensed something was terribly wrong and clung to me. I called Mom that night and told her about the lawyer, the divorce filing, the plan moving forward. She offered to fly out immediately, to help with the kids, to support me however she could. I told her to wait, that I needed a few days to establish a routine, but knowing she was ready to come gave me strength. Rachel called too, checking in, offering to take the kids for a while if I needed a break. The support from my family, the family Ashley had stolen from, was overwhelming. The next day, Friday, Patricia Vaughn's office emailed me the divorce petition, formal and cold with legal language. I read through it carefully, reviewing the grounds, the requested custody arrangement, the asset division proposals. Everything looked thorough and fair, weighted in my favor given Ashley's documented misconduct. I signed where indicated, had my signature notarized at a UPS store, and emailed everything back. Patricia said she'd file it with the court on Monday morning and arrange for Ashley to be served with papers. The weekend was surreal, trying to maintain normalcy for the kids while my entire life was imploding. We went to the park, played board games, watched movies, did all the regular things, but the absence of Ashley hung over everything like a shadow. Lily kept asking when Mommy was coming home, and I had to deflect without lying, telling her that grown-up problems took time to resolve. On Monday morning, the divorce petition was officially filed with Fulton County Superior Court. Ashley was served with papers that afternoon while she was at her sister's house. She called me immediately, hysterical, screaming about how I was destroying our family, how I was being unreasonable, how she'd get a lawyer and fight me on everything. I listened to her rage for about 30 seconds before hanging up. She called back 6 times, but I didn't answer, letting each call go to voicemail, where she left increasingly unhinged messages that I saved as evidence. Patricia called me Wednesday morning with an update. Ashley had retained an attorney, someone named Douglas Irving, who apparently had a reputation for being aggressive and expensive. Douglas had already filed a counterpetition disputing the adultery claims and the custody arrangement, arguing that Ashley deserved 50-50 custody and that I was making false accusations out of anger. Patricia wasn't worried. He's posturing, she explained. It's standard practice in contested divorces, but we have evidence, documentation, bank records, everything we need to prove your claims. Let him fight. We'll win. We scheduled depositions for late January, where both Ashley and I would be questioned under oath. Patricia explained that Ashley would have to admit to the theft and the affairs or commit perjury, either of which would strengthen our case. She also recommended I start therapy for myself and the kids, both to process the trauma and to document the emotional impact of Ashley's behavior for court purposes. I found a family therapist named Dr. Leonard Cross, who specialized in divorce trauma and child psychology. He had availability the following week for an initial consultation. I met with him first, alone, explaining the situation in detail. Dr. Cross listened with professional compassion, occasionally taking notes, and then said something that hit me hard. Quote, 68. He scheduled sessions with Lily and Noah separately, giving them safe spaces to express their feelings without fear of hurting me or Ashley. Watching my kids walk into therapy sessions, dealing with trauma they never should have experienced, filled me with rage at Ashley all over again. She'd done this, destroyed their sense of security and normalcy for her own selfish desires. January arrived cold and gray, matching my emotional state. The house felt empty without Ashley, but also cleaner somehow, like removing a source of toxicity had allowed the air to clear. Lily and Noah were adjusting slowly, creating new routines, accepting their new reality with the adaptability of children. Ashley had visitation rights until the final hearing, supervised visits at a neutral location every other weekend. I watched through a window at the Family Services Center as she played with the kids during her first visit, trying to act normal, trying to pretend everything was fine. The kids seemed confused but happy to see her, and I had to reconcile my hatred for what she'd done with the reality that they still loved their mother. Dr. Cross reminded me that children can love flawed parents, that loving someone doesn't mean excusing their behavior, and that my job was to help them navigate those complex feelings without imposing my own anger. The depositions happened on a rainy morning in late January. I arrived at Patricia's office at 8:30, nervous but prepared. Ashley's lawyer, Douglas Irving, was a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who immediately tried to intimidate me with rapid-fire questions about our marriage, my work schedule, my relationship with the kids. Patricia objected repeatedly, reframing questions, protecting me from the obvious traps Douglas was setting. When he asked about my mother's packages, I explained calmly and clearly that I'd known nothing about them until Christmas morning, that Ashley had hidden them deliberately, that she'd sold gifts meant for our children for her own use. Douglas tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, as Ashley making reasonable parenting decisions about appropriate clothing, but I pulled out the bank statements showing the hotel charges and the restaurant bills. His expression shifted from confident to concerned when he realized how much documentation we had. Ashley's deposition was scheduled for the afternoon, and I wasn't allowed to attend, but Patricia called me afterward with an update. Quote, 69. Patricia said, her voice grim with satisfaction. Quote, 70. Patricia explained that we were now in a strong position to request primary custody, potentially supervised visitation only for Ashley, until she completed counseling and demonstrated stable behavior. We scheduled the final hearing for March, giving both sides time to compile evidence and prepare arguments. The court would consider everything: the theft, the affairs, the lying, the impact on the children, and make decisions about custody, asset division, and alimony. February brought an unexpected development. Mom's attorney in Phoenix, someone she'd consulted on her own, reached out to Patricia about filing a civil suit against Ashley for theft and fraud. The lawyer, Gerald Strauss, specialized in elder financial abuse cases and argued that Ashley's behavior qualified because she'd stolen gifts intended for minor children from their grandmother. Gerald wanted to pursue criminal charges in addition to the civil suit, arguing that the total value of the stolen gifts exceeded $3,000, making it a felony under Georgia law. Patricia connected me with a criminal defense attorney who could advise me on the process, a woman named Victoria Lang who'd worked as a prosecutor before switching to defense. Victoria reviewed all the evidence and agreed that Ashley's actions likely constituted criminal theft, potentially even organized fraud given the systematic nature of the reselling operation. I had to make a choice: pursue criminal charges against the mother of my children, potentially sending her to jail, or let the civil suit and divorce proceedings be punishment enough. The decision tormented me for days. Dr. Cross helped me work through the ethical implications, reminding me that consequences teach accountability, and that protecting Ashley from legal repercussions would teach our children that family members were above the law. Mom called from Phoenix, her voice gentle but firm. She said, her words settled something in my soul. I called Victoria Lang and told her to proceed with filing a criminal complaint. She coordinated with Gerald Strauss and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, presenting evidence of systematic theft and fraud. Ashley was arrested on a Wednesday afternoon in mid-February while at her sister's house. The police report detailed the charges: 3 counts of theft by taking, 1 count of fraud, and 1 count of criminal trespass to personal property. The bond was set at $15,000, and Ashley spent 2 nights in jail before Brittany bailed her out. Douglas Irving filed an emergency motion to modify the divorce proceedings, arguing that the criminal charges were vindictive and designed to prejudice the family court against Ashley. Patricia countered that the criminal charges were legitimate and independent of the divorce, filed because Ashley had committed actual crimes. The judge agreed with Patricia, ruling that the criminal case would proceed on its own timeline. Ashley's criminal trial was scheduled for May after the divorce hearing but before summer. The divorce hearing finally arrived on a cold morning in early March. I sat in the courtroom in a suit I'd borrowed from a colleague, watching Judge Eleanor Fairchild review the massive stack of evidence Patricia had submitted. Judge Fairchild was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, known for being tough but fair in family law cases. She called Ashley and me to the stand separately, asking detailed questions about our marriage, our finances, our parenting. When she asked Ashley about the stolen gifts, Ashley broke down crying, admitting she'd made terrible mistakes, claiming she'd been suffering from depression and anxiety, begging for forgiveness. Judge Fairchild listened impassively, then asked, quote, 7-3. Ashley had no good answer. The judge reviewed Dr. Cross's reports on the children, which noted that both Lily and Noah felt betrayed by their mother's lies, but still loved her and wanted a relationship. After 2 full days of testimony and arguments, Judge Fairchild issued her ruling. I was granted primary physical custody with decision-making authority on major issues like education and health care. Ashley was granted supervised visitation every other weekend until she completed a court-mandated parenting class and 6 months of individual therapy. The marital assets were divided 60-40 in my favor, given Ashley's misconduct, meaning I kept the house and most of our savings. Ashley was ordered to repay my mother $3,000 for the stolen gifts through monthly payments of $200, starting immediately. There was no alimony awarded given her adultery and financial misconduct. Judge Fairchild's written opinion was scathing, stating that, quote, 74, quote, the ruling was a complete victory, yet it felt hollow standing there knowing my kids had lost the family structure they'd known. Ashley's criminal trial began in early May, drawing local media attention because of the unusual nature of the case. The headlines screamed, quote, 75, quote, and quote, 76, quote. I sat in the courtroom every day, watching prosecutors present the evidence I'd compiled. The jury of 8 women and 4 men looked increasingly disgusted as they learned the details. The monthly packages from a grandmother who'd worked extra shifts to afford them, the systematic reselling on Poshmark and Mercari, the bank statements showing hotel charges and extravagant meals, the children who'd gone without while their mother profited from theft. Ashley's defense attorney argued that the gifts had been delivered to her house and were therefore hers to do with as she pleased, but the prosecutor countered that gifts explicitly addressed to minor children belonged to those children, and that Ashley had no legal right to sell them for personal gain. The trial lasted 5 days. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Judge Raymond Sullivan, who presided over the criminal case, scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Douglas Irving filed an appeal immediately, arguing that the criminal conviction prejudiced the divorce proceedings, but the appellate court refused to hear it, ruling that Ashley had received due process and been convicted based on overwhelming evidence. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Sullivan heard victim impact statements from both me and my mother. Mom flew out from Phoenix, standing at the podium with quiet dignity, describing how she'd worked extra shifts to afford nice things for her grandchildren, how she'd imagined their faces when they opened her packages, how Ashley's betrayal had stolen not just gifts, but precious moments of connection with Lily and Noah. Her voice broke when she talked about the cards she'd written, the personal messages Ashley had hidden from the kids, the relationship damaged by lies. I spoke next, describing the moment on Christmas morning when my world imploded, the discovery of Ashley's double life, the impact on our children who'd lost trust in their mother and their sense of family security. Judge Sullivan listened carefully, took notes, and then asked Ashley if she had anything to say. She stood, her voice shaking, and apologized to everyone, to me, to the kids, to my mother, to the court. She claimed she'd been dealing with untreated mental health issues, had made terrible choices she regretted, and wanted a chance to make things right. Judge Sullivan wasn't moved. He sentenced Ashley to 18 months in county jail, followed by 5 years of probation, community service, and mandatory continued therapy. She'd serve her time starting immediately, with the possibility of early release after 12 months for good behavior. As the bailiff led her away in handcuffs, Ashley looked back at me with desperate eyes, but I felt nothing except relief that justice had finally been served. The months that followed were about healing and rebuilding. Lily and Noah continued therapy with Dr. Cross, processing their mother's absence and the reasons behind it in age-appropriate ways. Mom moved from Phoenix to Atlanta, renting an apartment near our house, so she could be actively involved in the kids' lives. She picked them up from school, helped with homework, attended their activities, making up for lost time and building the relationship Ashley had stolen. Lily and Noah flourished under her attention, their laughter returning gradually as they adjusted to their new normal. I dated occasionally, cautiously, learning to trust again slowly. Rachel visited from Phoenix regularly, bringing her own kids so Lily and Noah had cousins to play with, rebuilding our extended family network. Ashley's sister Brittany reached out once to apologize for not seeing the signs, for not questioning Ashley's lies. I told her it wasn't her fault, that Ashley had fooled everyone, that moving forward was what mattered now. Ashley served 13 months before being released on good behavior in June of the following year. She found a job at a call center, started paying restitution to my mother according to the court order, and attended her mandated therapy sessions. Her supervised visitation with the kids expanded gradually to unsupervised visits, as she demonstrated stability and compliance with court requirements. The relationship between Ashley and our children was forever changed, built now on truth and consequences, rather than blind trust. Lily asked difficult questions about why her mother had done what she'd done, and I helped her understand that addiction and bad choices didn't excuse behavior, but could explain it. Noah, younger and more forgiving, adapted more easily, though he sometimes asked why Mommy had gone away. I told him the truth in simple terms. Mommy made bad choices and had to face consequences, but she still loved him and was working hard to be a better person. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.